No, huh?
I know what that feels like. I know what that feels like.
Well, my boss just came back from vacation. And so he's
Welcome,
like,
everyone. Welcome. We're going to allow a couple of seconds as people come into the webinar today. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Noemi Guevara, and I am the Director of Alumni Engagement here at California State University, Long Beach. Before we start our session, we want to remind you this is being recorded and it will live on our website at csulb.edu/alumni. We also encourage you today to use the Q&A box located below to submit any questions for our guest speaker today. And now it's my honor to introduce you to our moderator, Lucia Cos. Lucia earned her degree in Spanish in 1975. She was recognized as a distinguished alumna in 2005 and now serves as a council member for the CSULB Alumni Council. Lucia, thank you for moderating the chat today. And now I turn it over to you.
Great. I want to go ahead and introduce Eric. He has almost 30 years experience in the food industry. He's held positions with some of the nation's top wholesalers, restaurants, supermarkets, including Melissa's Wholesale Produce, Walmart, Wegmans, H-E-B Grocery Company. He helped launch 200 stores across the U.S. with Tesco's Fresh and Easy as a marketing and merchandising manager. He then transitioned to JLE Enterprises, where he bought and sold food items with top discount retail chains like 99-cent stores, grocery outlets, and big lots. For the past 6 years, Eric has worked as a category manager at iHerb.com, one of the world's top e-commerce retailers, purchasing hundreds of millions of dollars a year in sports nutrition and grocery products from top brands like Optimum Nutrition, Muscle Tech, Gerber, and McCormick. Hosting today's industry chat, please welcome Eric Metz.
hello, everybody. Well, this is kind of fun. Let me go ahead and share my screen and kind of give you some background about who I am and what I've been doing over the past, I don't know, since I graduated 20 some odd years ago, right? Share my screen. There you go, share. So look, I didn't take the normal approach to going to college. I graduated from high school, was on the 10-year track for junior college. I went to Orange Coast College. You know, for a good 6 years before figuring that I really need to finish things up and transferring over to Cal State Long Beach. I've always wanted to be in business, and I've always had a flair for international. And Cal State Long Beach, you know, kind of checked all the boxes that did have a strong, it still does have a strong international business program. And it was local. I mean, I grew up in Garden Grove, and it was quick and easy to live at home and go to campus. And so I wasn't your typical right out of high school student. I was working 30 hours a week and going to school full time. And then when school was out for the summer, I was working 50 hours a week, 60 hours a week just to play catch up. So to kind of prompt this forward here. My father always said that you never go hungry in the food business. And that's so true, because you just don't. You know, right now as a grocery manager, category manager, we're always looking and poring over different samples. And believe me, I get to take home a lot of what we review. So if you were to look at my pantry versus a normal pantry, it's got a ton of different items in it. And in the purchasing sphere, we as category managers and buyers within the team, we all share our samples amongst each other to play with. So everyone has to eat. You know, my dad's a mentor to me because he was in the food industry for 30 years himself. But he started as a government employee. He, right out of the Navy, where he was a cook in the Navy, he went over into the federal service. He worked in the prison system. So he worked in the big, you know, tough, maximum security prisons like Leavenworth Federal Penitentiary, Marion, Illinois Federal Penitentiary. And he, as a prison guard, I kind of like took one of the towers here to kind of give you an idea. some of my earliest memories are basically having a bucket being, you know, lowered for me to put my dad's lunch in when I was a little toddler. But he showed me how the quality of food and how one values one another based on food. So especially when you're in that type of environment, when you're basically taking care of everybody within the prison system with decent, good food, they're going to respect those people that actually take care of them more than if the food was utter garbage, which, you know, my dad has seen it both ways due to budget cuts or simplicity or security issues. You know, food is one of the first things that everybody talks about in terms of the quality of one's life. I was really observant. So it wasn't just about what my dad was doing, but I saw others. I saw what other people were doing in the food industry. I saw that people were within the same position for 10 plus years and not growing. And that was because of lack of education. So that's kind of what prompted me to go Cal State Long Beach, get my degree and utilize it to as best as I could. So I traveled. I wanted to see how big the world really is. And the best way to do it is to find a job, even at the most basic starting level, and let others know and ask for mentorship and to get people to understand what you're working towards. And they will help you, especially if you're willing to learn. Okay.
Eric, can you kind of, we've got a lot of students on today. Could you kind of tell them how, I know you mentioned that you went to Cal State Long Beach because you needed the education, but yeah, jumping into, can you talk a little bit about the segue into the food industry with that knowledge, or were you doing both at the same time?
I was doing both at the same time. I literally was working for Melissa's and working 5-6 days a week, you know, 60 hours a week when I wasn't in school, which was part of the problem that took me 10 years while I was in junior college. Was I just worked and just worked and worked and worked. And then, you know, I basically saw that I needed to change. And so I worked with my employer that, you know, in a sense supported me. I wasn't working full time, but I still was able to keep my full-time benefits. They supported me in kind of shifting my schedule around so I could go to school, you know, Mondays and Wednesdays or Tuesdays and Thursdays from 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. in order to really get through my curriculum as quickly as possible.
Now, Eric, the reason you were able to do that too was because of your computer knowledge at the time, in terms of
yeah, I mean,
the skills you brought to the table.
Yeah, I mean, so I basically transferred. I basically worked for Melissa's, you know, help with the website and to basically help them where they needed help. And what really opened my eyes was my first business trip to Walmart at the home office in Bentonville. They were at the time launching their programming for vendor management, for vendor inventory management called, you know, back the day it was DCS 10,000 and it's Retail Link, and they still have Retail Link to this day. But that, because my ability to basically read and understand and learn programming really quickly helped me basically work towards that and to work towards that computer process of inventory management. One of the things I will note is one of the most desired skills right now is somebody who can look and do inventory management, because it is such a difficult skill. But given the fact that everything is e-commerce right now, it is something that's really desired, especially given the growth of e-commerce sales.
Is that something that you can learn at school, or is that, how do you pick that up?
Well, I mean, the great thing is that well, yes, you can learn a lot of that in schools, especially getting specific certifications, especially in demand planning. But outside of that, some of the most desired skills right now is within the Amazon environment. Like if you know and understand how Amazon runs in terms of being a vendor partner with Amazon, it makes you really desirable because there are very few individuals that have that skill. And that's why starting with some companies that are looking to do that, trying to find a dedicated person to do that, it's very lucrative for an individual to gain those skills. And sometimes it's just taking online courses that probably Amazon makes available for anybody to do, just like Google does, just like Microsoft does. All of the, Amazon has its own infrastructure, has its own environment, and they're just looking for people that that could go in, take the courses, and then find a small company that they can join and manage companies, because a lot of the manufacturers don't even do their own Amazon programming themselves. They actually farm that out to third parties to manage because they just don't have the time or the effort to learn how to do it on their own. And
as a point of reference, Melissa's was a wholesale produce company. And
correct, yes.
How did you get that job? Because this was before you went to Long Beach State, right?
Yeah, it was way before. I mean, it was before I went to Long Beach State. I actually had a family connection with the family that owns it. But that's just minimal. I mean, if it wasn't Melissa's, it could have been one of a dozen companies here. The great thing about California is that California is the food basket, not just for the nation, but for the world. Because whether, California fruits and vegetables, California meats, they're all shipped in large ocean containers to a lot of the different countries around the world. The Japanese are one of the largest consumers of California produce. And with the number of food companies, whether they're on the manufacturing side or the wholesaling side, both here in Los Angeles and in the San Joaquin Valley, or even in Sacramento and in San Francisco area, you'll be able to find dozens upon dozens of companies to try to get your foot into the door.
So this is great for this audience today. So let's go back to your slide here in terms of the important things to kind of focus on and how you learned everything you learned.
Well, I mean, a lot of it's been experiential by developing myself. So when I was at Melissa's, for example, I was noticing that we were getting a lot of inquiries from international, either distributors or exporters wanting to export to their country. And I was like, well, nobody's really doing it here. Let me go ahead and take it on, especially because at the time I was taking international business, at Cal State Long Beach. So with that, I was like, let me at least try to see what I can do. So I learned and I asked questions, and I worked with the local, Los Angeles Department of Agriculture and the USDA to figure out like what are the necessary steps in order for me to be able to export fruit and vegetables. And so I built upon that and worked a program to get products out there, and also attended a lot of trade shows. Attended a lot of not just local trade shows, but also international trade shows. And there you start developing, a customer base of potential, exporters. It's a lot easier now, of course, because this is more of an environment, more of an internet friendly environment. So you don't necessarily have to like jump on an airplane and go to Thailand and go to Divex and start, trying to find and discover everybody. And the language barriers aren't as difficult as they were back then. But in terms of experiences, like an easy slideshow of some of my experience so far at iHerb and doing some vendor visits. Most of this is all in Canada, but I got to see production locations and warehousing and got to see, of course, Niagara Falls. But through all of this, I, meet new people, ask questions, make new friends and contacts, which if I ever have a question, I'm always passing that contact to somebody else who may need it. And, you know, it's very reciprocal in this industry.
So in terms of networking, how important were the trade shows to help you kind of expand not only your knowledge of the industry, but also make connections?
The trade shows are really important because you do make those connections, but also a lot of the trade shows actually, I'll give you a great example. So the largest trade show in the country for natural products is located here in Anaheim called Expo West. And it's not just like, oh, well, there's a trade show and, you know, a couple of thousand booths. It takes up the entire convention center. It's also a huge education component and program that the organization that manages the expo has. I mean, the expo is like 4 days long. I think because of COVID this year, it's only going to be like 3 days long. But 3 days prior, they've got like 30 to 40 different education courses that they run during the trade show, so that those that are in the industry and want to improve or increase their education within the natural products, they can take these courses. And to do these courses are only, you know, like $350 to $500, you know, not per course, but for like an entire slate of courses. So it's really inexpensive to be able to go in, expose yourself to all of these different opportunities, and then you can go booth to booth, and you can learn all of the major players in that industry, and then turn around and, you know, I've seen people walk around the trade show, you know, handing out their resume, you know, to the companies that they're really interested in getting their foot into the door, because it is a really difficult market right now in terms of finding employees. And so anybody that's interested in working in the industry is a lot better than trying to pluck somebody out of thin air.
So that I'm glad you mentioned that, Eric, because we do have a lot of young people online right now that would love to see, would it be important for them to show up at those kinds of trade shows, especially that one.
Yeah, and because it's so close and it is like the top trade show in the industry, if you can get in, because you can't just walk in,
No.
You have to be sponsored in order to walk into a trade show like that, or you can pay for it, but it's not really cheap. I think it's like $600 to $800 just to walk into the trade show, but they want you to be a member of the trade in one way, shape, or form. So you know, part of it though is that, you know, just going in and going onto the website and finding all the different manufacturers that are showing at the trade show, and just offering yourself out there, say, hey, I'm local, I want to know the industry, do you need any help at your booth to be there to help either set up or what have you? And a lot of them will definitely take it because they need somebody there to help hand out, well, I mean, COVID right now, it's kind of hard to hand out samples, but they need somebody there to help and be helpful during the trade show, because it is, you know, we're talking 100,000 people in Anaheim attending this trade show over 4 days. And so they can use all the help that they can get.
Right. Okay, now go ahead.
So, you know, the next part of this, I just wanted to talk about the things that I've learned over the years, which was, you know, I've had to be, you know, shifting and adjustable to be able to learn the meat and the products and merchandising and purchasing. I've had to learn these computer programs that, you know, like I was hired as a merchandiser, but yet I've used computer-aided merchandising in the past. And so that's what helped me get my foot into the door, you know, at Tesco. And then while at JLE, because I was in sales and I knew product, you know, it's a sales position and a purchasing position, because you're having to try to find and dig all of these buying opportunities of excess product, short code dated product for me to buy and then sell. And so you're not just looking at it as a salesperson. You're not just looking at it as a buyer. You're also looking at the logistics. Like, what is my net cost? What is my transportation cost? What do I need to, offer this product at and still make a decent profit? And then, what is my profit? Because I was while working at JLE, it was kind of it was a not a salaried position, and it wasn't an hour. It was commission only. So you were trying to do as much as you can within the shortest period of time.
Eric,
Yeah.
while you were at all these different companies, you mentioned it's important to take advantage of the training. So that's how you find out some of these very specific areas of focus?
Yes, and you also kind of keep your head open for the needs of the organization that you're in. One of the things that I will say in part of, in my questions that I looked at were that, a lot of people think that working for a big company is the best thing in the world because there's a lot of opportunity in these big companies, but a lot of times too, you can get lost. You're in a company with tens of thousands of employees. You're just one among many. Rather than working for smaller organizations that, when I started with iHerb, for example, we had probably 300 employees. Now we're, over 1,000 plus employees. Our company's grown really big over the last 6 years that I've been with them. We've basically tripled our size since I started. And that's kind of like what I wanted. This is kind of what this next slide is here too, is to just talk about iHerb and what it is, because iHerb is like the next version of online e-commerce. Whereas if you look at a lot of the e-commerce companies here in the United States, their focus is the United States. But iHerb plays in cross-border, which means that, for iHerb, 90% of our sales are actually outside of the United States. We're shipping US product direct to consumer to over 180 countries around the world. And so if you can kind of think about the logistics and the necessity of getting these products, these US products to these consumers, it's a huge daunting task. So what I wanted to do is just show a quick video that maybe will give you some insight of what I currently do and iHerb itself. Hopefully it comes through okay.
And Eric, once we've watched the video, if you could talk a little bit about kind of what you mean by category manager and what
Of course.
entail, and also the rise in e-commerce. And I think also from looking at some of your notes, what's gone on with COVID and how that's kind of really pulled that whole industry into a whole nother realm.
Yeah, so iHerb, we're now doing about $2 billion in annual sales. I manage about $130 million in purchases across 240 brands. So basically what I do as a category manager is that I look and find brands to onboard onto the website. I also manage my brands, and I manage the categories. So I manage grocery, home, baby, pet. And so I manage my senior buyers and junior buyers that also have their own assigned brands. And so we look at not just to onboard, but manage, and then through the entire product life cycle or brand life cycle with the company. If the brand doesn't perform, we make those decisions to move those brands. At iHerb, we have 32,000 SKUs. We ship direct. Yeah, I mentioned that. We have multiple different categories. So what we do too is we're probably one of the largest ranked e-commerce websites in the world. So everybody has heard of Amazon, of course. A lot of people have heard of like Rakuten and Wish, and we kind of play in that space. But what iHerb is different is that our focus is on supplements and health and nutrition products. So where Chewy.com is for pets, we want to be health and nutrition.
Well, can I just have you take me just quickly, because I don't want to run out of time.
Of course.
What are some of the key skills and qualities you look for in new hires in that e-commerce side, which sounds like it's taking off.
Yeah, so a lot of the key, what we're looking for is that they understand logistics, they understand product, you know, depends on what, like if we were to hire for somebody as a junior buyer, you know, we don't necessarily need them to have buying experience, but we do want them to have some sort of education behind them that they can be quickly trained. So somebody with a business, you know, with a bachelor's in business, and then turn around and say, you know, I worked for X company for X number of years to help as like maybe you know, a product manager or an assistant. Usually, you know, those are great people to onboard. You know, anybody with retail experience, especially in the food industry, that, you know, if they worked in a grocery store, for example, as a manager, and they're wanting to kind of make the next move to e-commerce, those are great people to onboard as a junior buyer. You know, so that's kind of what I'm looking right now. I actually have an open position for a senior buyer. So if anybody knows a senior buyer with grocery, home, pet, baby, retail purchasing experience, please bring them my way. I would definitely be very happy, because it's very hard to hire somebody right now. So, you know, definitely with COVID, it's kind of exacerbated things. So let me go to that slide. COVID, 91% of shoppers reported at least one change of where, who, or how they bought product. 24% used to send only one person to shop rather than 2+. So in a lot of ethnic families, it was very well known that a lot of those ethnic families went to the store together, and it was like you know, a family, you know, a family bonding time in a sense of going retail shopping. Nobody does that, of course, because of safety concerns. But now, like, where like 10% of the population would do a grocery spend online weekly, now it's about 30%. So I heard an interesting note is that like Giant Foods, which is a large retail grocery chain in the East Coast, the Washington, D.C. area, they had to hire within the first 3 months of COVID over 8,000 new employees just to meet the demand because of COVID. So where you had a lot of people working outside of the home and, you know, driving back and forth, now everybody's working from home. And so instead of going out to dinner, very few people were going out for dinner now. And so everybody's cooking, and everybody's having to learn how to cook. And so everybody's had to change their shopping behavior. And so these are some of the statistics too about how that has changed over time.
Are some of the new training within your company is reaching out to that particular focus of e-commerce?
Training, well, I mean, in terms of iHerb and consume and how we reach out via marketing. So to give you an idea, like, because we're so international and global, our site's translated into 11 languages, and we have marketing offices in Russia and Shanghai and in the Middle East, as well as our main marketing team in Pasadena, which manages Japanese and Korean. But yeah, we've literally had to focus and change our product offering to include ready-to-eat meals. You know, they may not be the most, you know, freshest meals because we're e-commerce and we don't do with refrigeration, but ready-to-eat meals is, you know, something that consumers have had to drive. They've driven up the demand in order to make their cooking at home easy. Because, you know, when I was at Tesco, they were saying that about only 10% of families cook regular meals more than one time a week at home. Like, not assembled, but actually, like, you know, cook product, you know, in a pan, using the oven, making side dishes, you know, rice boiling water. Most families didn't do that anymore. Most families just assembled their dinner from their multiple shopping experiences in order to feed their family.
So
Go ahead.
Oh, no, it sounds like when I'm looking at the bottom of this slide, the inventory control, how do you learn that part of it? Because that sounded like the most important area of upward mobility or getting into that industry. Because anyone that knows that you mentioned, that would good
Yeah, I mean,
good foot in the door.
yeah, and it is. It's, how do you get into it? Basically, if you take IT or business into college, and then you can gain certifications into demand planning and in inventory management, that'll easily get you hired. It is such a demanded position right now. I know for sure, like iHerb's probably hiring 3 to 4 new demand planners within the next 6 months. And it's because of the growth of iHerb and e-commerce, and we just need those people for that demand. But over my tenure, you're finding more and more automation making those positions more accessible. Whereas you used to do everything by Excel spreadsheet. Now you don't. Now you have computer programs basically telling you what the expected sales or the buy to sales are in order to keep X number of months worth of inventory on hand. So a lot of that is becoming easier. So instead of having to have a team of 100 different demand planners or purchasers, depending on how they managed, the company managed the purchasing department, now you only need 20 to 30. But there's still such a demand for that position that, if you're looking to kind of guide where you want to go in your next step in your career, demand planning, purchasing, those are positions that will definitely be needed, for a long time. Because even though you have AI and AI is improving every day, we've been talking about AI for 30 years. And so as it continues to evolve, it does improve. We still have warehouse employees picking product, in order to put in a box. Robotics are there. I have a quick thing on robotics, but to give you an idea, an example, this is our robotics program in our Hong Kong facility, which we just opened this week. And you can see here the little robots moving all the shelves from point A to point B. But all of that takes a lot of IT. A lot of that takes a lot of innovation. A lot of it takes, it still takes systems and computer designers to map out these programs that allow the pickers to pick. Because long gone are the warehouse employees going down a football field worth of shelving to try to find and pick the right product and put it in the right box, then it goes to the right place. Everything is so automated now that the chance of a product going to the wrong customer or the wrong product going to the right customer is like less than a fraction of 1%.
So does your industry hire the IT folks, or do you piecemeal that out? Do you have large companies that have those types of people?
iHerb hires everybody. iHerb manages and hires people. We do all of our own programming.
Okay.
So the internal programming that we use for purchasing was developed by iHerb. WMS, which is a well-known system and program that's now, prolific within the industry, was actually developed by iHerb and resold. Mm-hmm. So we've actually gone and now, because our company size is so big, we're actually moving everything to SAP. So, and we use EDI for like SPS Commerce in order to, transmit orders back and forth and inventory planning. So,
Would supply chain managers have better chance of getting hired in your industry?
Most definitely. If you're already doing supply chain management and you're working for a brick and mortar store right now, unless you're one of the larger stores, just wait. Probably within the next 10 to 15 years, you'll start seeing brick and mortar stores declining. You already see it with large companies like Macy's, and Sport Chalet, which was a local company here. All of them were basically overrun by Amazon and other e-commerce platforms. Because if you look at it and think about it, nobody wants to pay an employee $20 an hour to run a register, right? With all the benefits and everything else. You've seen what's happened in Long Beach with the two Kroger stores closing because of the fact that, you know, because of the forced pay. Not that I agree with it or not. It's just unfortunate that the company felt that they had to do that because they say that they weren't making enough money. My overall point is that when you have more competition from companies like Amazon going into the fresh industry and non-unionized and making things more and more efficient so that you can run a full store with a crew of 30 versus a crew of 100, your costs with it to run a store are dramatically decreased. That's why a lot of major companies are creating they're creating locations just to what they call experiential locations, because they only want to carry 10% of the inventory in store and tell their consumer that the product will show up at their door either the same day or next, because it's so much cheaper for them to manage it that way.
So to get into this industry, is it easier to try and get an internship or start at the entry level? I'm talking for a lot of the young, the students that are online right now.
Internships are definite. I'm actually trying to work with my HR team. Like COVID really pushed everything back.
Right.
Like we would love to do an internship program, but it's impossible because we have warehousing and staff. We have to be extremely careful on like I couldn't even go into my office for 3 months.
Right.
Because of the potential exposure to our warehouse staff that could shut down, 30 to 40% of our total business.
Right. We're like almost at the 5-minute mark, so maybe I better let you finish this. This is a good question slide.
Please. I mean, pretty much the rest of this is all advice that is here. So, search for mentorship, search for opportunities. Network. Please reach out. Don't just be the person that you network and then you never reach out ever again. It's not about gaining the person, but to actually ask for it. Be helpful. Show that you're really desiring to get your foot in the door.
We can all get a copy of this slide deck from our folks, right? For some of the students that maybe like to see this.
Yeah, I mean, you can download it as a PDF. I think, yeah, you download it as a PDF. It's perfectly fine.
Right.
And I'm free to answer any questions right now too.
I know it. Well, I think, let me see, there was a couple more. So, well, one of the questions was, what's something in the food industry you're still hoping to do in your career?
You know what? I would like to do a full company like brand launch. I think my next step in my career, once everything is said and done, is to work with someone and create a company and a product and a brand and get that brand sold through, mass retailers around the world. The one great thing about iHerb is that, we're able to get a new brand and product to market and utilize the US label and send it to people in over 188 countries. A lot of people have these aspirations of being a global company, and iHerb could do that. We could do that really quickly and easily without having to invest in, 80 different labels, 80 different languages to get that product available for shelf. Right now, most people aren't going to shelf. They're going and clicking and getting the product delivered. So why go through all that hassle? And just finding an iHerb or an Amazon to launch, because anybody can come up with a product and launch their product on Amazon. It's not very hard to create an Amazon account. And by doing that, then you support your brand, you get reviews, and then you get noticed by big retailers like iHerb, because you know, we're a curated website. Thrive.com is a curated website. Chewy is a curated website versus a third-party platform like Rakuten and JD and China and Amazon. You know, anybody can just create a store and sell their product as long as they're willing to pay the fees, the shipping fees and the inventory fees, or ship the product themselves. It's, you know, you can create it. You know, just like the internet is what the internet has done for musicians and videographers and movie makers to get their product out there. It's the same thing with grocery and retail products. You just create your own story, put it out there. Yeah.
We got a 2-minute warning, but I know someone asked about the high competition and how do you protect your brands, and do you hire a whole staff to deal with those kinds of laws and the things that come up with the global environment?
I say you grow, you grow as you go. So of course you're going to do the basics of protecting your products and your assets. So you're going to get patents and you're going to copyright your products. But outside of that, once you start seeing the demand and the need, that's when you start reaching out to lawyers and other people to then backfill your need, because you know there are lots of examples of people bootstrapping their business. Right. And growing, and you just do the best you can with as little as you have, and let the product grow and speak for itself.
Eric, you got 1 minute to give us your final words.
Gosh, I know I talk a lot, and so here's my final words. Know your worth. Number one, if you feel like you're not being valued where you're at, start searching to move somewhere else. Right now, it's a seeker's market. If you have the experience, start figuring out how that experience could definitely transfer into an e-commerce world, because e-commerce is here to stay, and it's going to grow, and it's going to grow in double digits for the next 30, 40 years. Yeah, I mean, that's the best advice there. Start today. Don't think that you're going to do it in a few years. One of the biggest mistakes I think I did was I pushed off focusing on my education and starting, I graduated in 1993, and I didn't graduated high school in 93. I didn't graduate college until 2003. That was 10 years. That's 10 years of lost ability to basically move my career forward.
Okay, Eric, I think that's a hard stop there. Noemi's come on. Thanks so much. Go ahead, Noemi.
Perfect. I hope this was great. This is my first time doing this, so I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Lucia. It was a great conversation. Eric, before we go, if anyone wants to connect with you and network, are you okay that they befriend you on LinkedIn?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm really good about that. Just let me know that you were participated in this, so I know to go ahead and accept your invitation. I do get a lot of LinkedIn requests, so
maybe just put a comment that you're a CSUOB student or alumni, so that you're able to accept them.
Noemi, can we share his slides somehow?
So if anyone is interested in the slides, please email us at alumni@csuob.edu, and we're happy to share that. Also, if you want to connect with him, maybe via email, we're able to do that. Just let us know. Thank you so much for joining us today. We encourage you to visit our site and learn about our future events like this. We thank you so much for joining us.